Hey, what's up, everyone? This is the Snowfall Aftermath, and this is a new show where we will be recapping the TV show Snowfall every single week. Now, I'm here with Mr. Richard Bailey Jr. How you doing, Rich?
Doing good, Gary. What's up, listeners and viewers?
What's up, indeed, indeed. So, we missed the first two episodes. We missed the window of that, so this episode is going to be a recap for episodes 1 through 3, and 3 was obviously the most recent episode. The reason we didn't do one for episode 1 and 2 on the week that they came out is because time differences, and then we had to figure out where this was going to fit in our schedules and everything. I'm on the other side of the ocean to Rich, so that means time differences and things like that. So now we've got a format, we've got a schedule that we can kind of stick to. So we'll try and recap each episode every week, and it will be it will fall somewhere between when after the episode comes out. So yeah, so for this week we'll be going 1 through 3. And the way this is going to work is, each of us are going to kind of give our takeaways from each episode, the things that, sparked our interest, and, just things of significance that we think might, lead somewhere. We'll also, give a bit of, predictions and things like that. And then afterwards, we'll have a discussion about, all of our takeaways, and just kind of predict what's going to happen in the next episode. So, it's going to be pretty straightforward, quick and clean. Hopefully, the episode won't drag on too long. So, let's, get right to it. So, we are going to focus on Snowfall Season 4, Episode 1, first of all. And, I'll just run through my takeaways first, and then we'll head over to Rich. So, this episode, clearly, it gave me the impression that this is going to be a much more action-packed season compared to previous ones. And there was a few things that happened in this episode that really set the pace and set the tone for what this season is going to be. So let's get straight into these takeaways. So first of all, the Mexican officers, as soon as I saw the exchange between Teddy, Gustavo, and that Mexican, border police guy or whatever, I knew he was going to be a problem. That guy, I knew something was going to go down. It's just the body language and just the intensity of that exchange. I knew something was going to go wrong here. And then the exchanges between Franklin and Leon, that showed me, this is a very damaged friendship between the two. And obviously we know that the gang war is going on as well. And I was instantly thinking, where does Leon fit into this? I thought maybe Leon was going to get directly involved in the gang war somehow, and this could still happen later on. But I thought it was going to happen in this episode. Maybe I thought maybe Leon would end up costing, Franklin. I thought maybe he would damage Franklin's plans that he was putting in motion to kind of neutralize the gang war and everything. But that didn't happen, obviously. But clearly, Leon expressed that he didn't want to work with Louis anymore. So that just went to show that these two are really separated now, Franklin and Leon. So that was interesting to see. So there was a few scenes with Skully that really showed me, how crazy this guy is and how much of a problem he is going to be. So when Franklin went to see him at the funeral or whatever, he made this, he spoke about the cross, the cross that Jesus was crucifixed on and everything. And then later on in the episode, we see one of Manboy's people pinned up on the cross in the the basketball court or wherever that
Baseball
was.
field.
Oh, the baseball field. My bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm from the UK, so I'm not privy to all these US sports and stuff. Like, so forgive me, people. But yeah, so on the baseball court, the guy was pinned up on on the cross, and that just kind of showed me like, yeah, this guy Skully is going to be a problem for everyone. Like this is like the Omar of this like season. Like basically, like he's crazy. So
Oh yeah. Loose cannon.
yeah, for real. So yeah, so like I liked the one thing I liked in this episode is that you didn't know what Franklin was really thinking, because it seemed at one point he was kind of siding towards Skully, like he was gonna set things up so that Skully would kind of be the one to kind of like get rid of Manboy and take over. He even gives him a gun and everything. But then you see Franklin with Manboy, and it's like he's actually plotting the opposite thing to happen. So I like that dynamic, but I think that will end up hurting Franklin. Like just just the way he handled this whole thing, and obviously there's more to discuss in episode 2 about this, but yeah, I just found that interesting in the first episode. And yeah, the final scene of that episode is really what separates Snowfall from other shows to me, like including Power, which is another show that we recap. Like, because the final scene where Alton and Franklin are in the house together, and Franklin, he has this pressure on him where he has to kind of resolve this gang war once and for all, and he's kind of set things up so that Skully is gonna take out Manboy or whatever, and he has to kind of leave and oversee that situation, right? But for a moment, his dad is he's talking about these movies they used to watch together and times they used to spend together and stuff, and he asks Franklin if he wants to just catch a movie. And obviously Franklin knows that his life isn't that simple anymore, and he has all this stuff going on that he has to handle, and he could possibly like not return home after that. So just the way they handled this scene, where it says so much even though it says so little. Like there's not a lot of dialogue in that scene, but it says a lot. So I think scenes like that is really what makes Snowfall great, and it gives it like another dimension compared to other shows that that focus on drugs and stuff like that. So those were my takeaways for episode 1. So Rich, go ahead and let me know your takeaways from that first episode.
So let me start by saying those were some great takeaways. I have some of the same. I only have a few other points that I will add. So obviously, one of my takeaways from the first episode that I can see, and obviously it's going to evolve as we get into discussions of episode 2 and 3. I'm getting the feeling that Reed Thompson is a ticking time bomb. I recall when he met Franklin in this episode again, Franklin mentioned, oh, you started smoking. So obviously all of the stuff that Reed is involved in is starting to take a toll on him. We've seen that over the past seasons. The whole thing about his, the complicated relationship he has with his baby's mom, and, not being able to see his son, and the fact that at the end of last season, he had to just completely cut himself off from that relationship altogether. It definitely has taken a toll on the character. So I have to give them props for the character development. And then you see in this episode that he has, as he is, as they are basically starting to ramp things up, and before they start to have some serious problems with these other people that they're dealing with, there's a scene where he's going over some paperwork, smoking, and then he starts snorting a little bit of cocaine. So I feel like this character is definitely headed in a downward spiral in terms of what's happening with him slowly but surely. a lot of things are taking an effect on him. And then that scene that they had with Abi when he was talking to him about where are my guns, and then he shoots the gun off right near the guy's face, who is one of the guys working for Abi, and Abi was surprised to see that reaction. I feel like this is the writers slowly letting you know this character is a lot different than he was in previous seasons, where he's a little bit more paranoid. I mean, he was always a paranoid character, but the fact that now he doesn't have access to the relationship that he had with his woman, he hasn't seen his son. He has fully given up all of that to go all in for the government, and because he believes so strongly in making sure all this stuff works out the way it does. So I definitely think that's going to get worse as the season goes on. My other takeaway is that finally they have found a way to bring all three of these characters together. Franklin, Teddy, and Gustavo. They brought all them together finally for the sake of ensuring how they are interacting among each other, because they had a little scene in the club. And of course, we saw that Leon is still very upset about what happened to Kevin and still blames Gustavo and his girl for what happened. And by the way, I hope that actress does eventually come back before this show is over, but I think she's gone from the show for good, which is unfortunate, because it felt like there was still a lot more story left to be told for her. But yeah, we can see that there's still tension, and that bleeds right into the point that you made about yes, Leon being on the outside of what's going on with Franklin right now. It definitely seems like, obviously what we know about this show, these guys grew up together. They're very close friends. So to see that friendship now fractured, that's a problem. And it kind of feels like, this entire season, we're going to see if they eventually do get back working together. But for right now, my whole thing is that it just right now they're trying to show you the fallout of everything that has happened, and how Franklin is dealing with the situation. And that leads to my final takeaway from this episode is that when the episode started, we're seeing Franklin, he's looking over the happy birthday card he got from Melody. This was before everything got, bad between them and everything with her dad, all that stuff. So I know some people have been critical about these first two episodes and the feeling that Franklin is a different character. I just want to point out the character should be different, because if you saw the season finale, you saw the last two episodes of season 3. This guy got shot 3 times. How can anyone expect the character to come back and just be like, he still needs to recover from that? It's like he came back and immediately threw himself right back into the drug game, because in his mind, he's thinking, I need to continue to build up the communities and get these opportunities that I deserve, all this other stuff. But meanwhile, it is literally ripping apart all of Los Angeles. And I'll get into that a little bit further, because you do see the effects. And that's one thing that I do like about this show, is that they don't shy away from showing you the effects of how the drugs are impacting the community. And they let you know that on a consistent basis, not just with the whole war between the Bloods and the Crips, but literally every aspect of what is going on in the characters' lives. And I'll use this as a quick example before we go on to episode 2. When Franklin went to go meet Manboy, they had a scene where he's walking up the steps, and you see that there's a woman there that's doing crack. It's like they're letting you know this is a major point of what is the source of conflict for all of these characters right now. Because Franklin, as we know, he was the one who way back in season 1, once he found out about the way to make the crack into rocks, and he brought that over to LA, a lot of people got impacted by it. We already saw what happened to Melody, etc. So, I mean, the thing is that they're letting you know with every episode and every conflict that Franklin is involved in, crack is the source of it. Either people he's dealing with, or somebody who is in that, who has been using, who is in that situation that makes things a lot more hostile for him. And I'll get into what I mean when we get into episode 2. But those are my takeaways for the most part. And of course, the reporter who is now trying to investigate what really happened with Franklin getting shot. I think we know that that will not have a happy ending because she was warned that don't not to get too close to to find out what actually happened. But we'll see how that story plays out.
Oh yeah, yeah. She keeps getting warned, but but yeah, we'll get to that. But yeah, excellent takeaways for the first episode. You raised some great points, and you noticed a lot of fine details in the episode. So let's get right into episode 2 and our takeaways for that episode. So again, I will go first. So you know so I don't have too many because obviously episode 3 is where we want to get to, but some major things did happen in this episode. So of course, at the very top of the episode, we see what happens with the plans that are put into place to neutralize this gang war, and it all goes left because Skully is very paranoid, of course. And he, as soon as he steps in that warehouse or wherever it was, like, he knows something ain't right, and he starts tripping out, and he fires shots, and then that leads to Manboy, like, and his people kind of stepping out and shooting before they were kind of supposed to. And then Skully gets to see what's going on. Like, he now at that moment he knows exactly what was going on. He knows he was set up and everything. And then there's a scramble. And then it ends up to where Franklin never knows whether Skully actually died or not. So that ends in total chaos. And playing both sides kind of just backfires on Franklin. That lets us know how crazy it's about to get. Especially because that was the start of the episode, like so it's about to get crazy. So, so yeah, and then later on in the episode, Manboy actually lies to Franklin, like, because he asks, like, Franklin asks Manboy if he hit Skully, and Manboy kind of he gives him like that kind of look where he's like, yo, you're scared, like, you're scary right now. So he lies to him and tells him that Skully's dead, basically. But I don't think Franklin 100% believes it, because we see he's very paranoid and everything, especially later on when he goes to CT and stuff. So I don't think he truly believes it. But I guess he leaves that conversation thinking that it might be possible, at least. So yeah, and I think Manboy is really, like, messing with Franklin a bit, and I think he might potentially be getting some ideas about how he might handle Franklin, like, later on. So and that will lead to more discussions later, I guess. But yeah, so we see that Leon is struggling to find his way without Franklin, because obviously Franklin used to handle all of the complicated stuff. Like, he had the brains to resolve these things, but Leon is really struggling. He has his boy CJ with him, and I forgot the name of the other guy, but yeah, I think there's a scene in this episode where is this the one where they're trying to buy the drugs from the Mexicans, and they go to that alley and everything, and it's a setup, basically. Like his friend CJ walks up the dark alley and everything, and then, like, the Mexicans start walking down, and they drive off because, like, it seems like a setup, basically. So
Yeah.
at that point, we see how difficult it is for Leon to kind of get some sort of supply chain so that he can continue to do his thing. And I think this kind of this could go in many ways, in many directions, I think, because obviously he doesn't want to work with Louis, but there are other people he could potentially align himself with later on. So I'm anxious to see how they're going to play this storyline specifically, because this could end up being really interesting. But but yeah, it's cool to see how much he's struggling, because it just goes to show, like, because both of them, you know, like you kind of alluded to earlier, like both Leon and Franklin are kind of like really struggling right now without each other. So so if you think about it, they kind of need each other, but you know, pride and egos and things like that always get in the way. So yeah, but we see a lot of Officer Nixon, you know, in this episode as well, and and there's actually a scene where Franklin is talking to him, and he tries to kind of get Officer Nixon to it was like
It's Nix.
It's
Officer Nix.
Officer Nix, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes I get confused. I don't know if it's the same officer, but yeah, I guess it was the same guy. But he tries to get him to neutralize the gang war and stuff, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And he even offers to pay him, you know, pay him some money and stuff like that. But you know, they kind of scope out the situation, the cops, and they see that, you know, this is something they probably shouldn't, you know, get involved in. And, you know, that whole exchange with Franklin and Officer Nixon backfires later on, because, you know, we see Officer Nix, you know, he storms in on Franklin's dad after he just had like a short exchange with Arlene. And, you know, he's angry at Franklin's dad. And Arlene sees this, and this kind of gives her an opening to kind of talk to, you know, Franklin's dad again. And obviously now she sees that, you know, there's something going on with, you know, Officer Nix and everything. So this kind of opens up some new threads for her, I guess. And just one more thing I wanted to point out as well. Obviously we see what happens with, you know, the stuff with the Mexican border cop. That kind of escalates a little bit in this, and he starts asking for, you know, $100,000 and everything, and he makes this small kind of threat to Gustavo and his friend in a wheelchair and everything. And the way they set this up was really cool, because like obviously you saw when you know, the guy's son had a birthday party, and Gustavo was the wrestler. And I have to say as well, like this wrestling match was better than any wrestling match I've seen in WWE lately. Like, so it was more exciting. So, but yeah, so you know, they set that up really nice, because they showed how invested Gustavo is in his people and, you know, his family and everything. So, and then at the end of the episode, they get killed, they get murdered. So this is the moment when, you know, stuff really gets real with, you know, Gustavo and Teddy's situation, because we know that some repercussions are coming for this. So so yeah, like this is definitely going to turn out as like a super action-packed season. Like it's going to be very bloody, very violent, clearly. So yeah, those were some of the takeaways from episode 2 that, you know, I wanted to kind of bring up. So with that being said, go ahead, Rich, and let me know what your takeaways are for episode 2.
Okay, yeah, you said a lot of great, excellent takeaways. I also want to add on to go back to what I was saying about episode 1 and the fact that we had the scene where when Franklin was going up the steps, you know, they showed a woman that was doing crack. Well, to go along with what I was saying before, in this particular episode, and you already mentioned it, when Skully shows up and he's like, "Where the roaches at? Where the roaches at? I see roaches." Obviously, that gets some of Manboy's crew riled up. But there's one guy in Manboy's crew specifically that was actually high at that moment, and he was the one that reacted first and jumped out and just started shooting. So this goes along what I was saying of how it's crazy how, in hindsight, the drugs impact a lot of situations that Franklin is involved in. Because Franklin was there, you know, anything could have gone wrong. He could have been the one that could have gotten killed. So it's crazy how they make sure to show you, yes, the drugs impact everybody, and this is why Franklin and has said from the very beginning of this show, never get high on your own product. And he warned this to Kevin. He said it to Leon as well. He told a lot of people this stuff, but they have to show that because it really emphasizes how this tore apart Los Angeles during this time period, and it's still a problem today, I would assume, around the world, depending on wherever drugs are easily able to be accessed. So, yeah, they had to show that. The other takeaway I will go to, what you mentioned about Gustavo, I also agree that I'm glad that they showed the dynamic of what was going on with his family. We have to remember, the guy that he brought in, I believe that was his cousin, but he brought this guy into this thing from earlier seasons. He was the one that reached out to him and tried to do business with him to get him involved. So I kind of feel like I definitely could understand the emotion he felt when he found out at the end, or that they killed this guy, and then the kids would disappear. Now I don't know if the kids were killed or not because they didn't show us any dead bodies of the actual kids, but you did see his cousin, the wife. They were killed. So I understand his raw emotion now of wanting to get revenge because we already know who was involved because they spoke to that officer, and then right after they had that exchange with the officer, the next time you see these characters, you see, oh well, now the cousin is dead. So they obviously know who was involved in this, and I feel for him, but I'm glad they showed that. They had to show that in this game anybody can get killed. It doesn't really matter if it's family or not. So I applaud them for that. As for other takeaways with Nix, yeah, my whole thing is that scene where Nix approached Elton at the shelter and threatened him. If you recall in that scene, Arlene was also there, and she was also talking with Elton before and after that exchange. So I do have a theory as to what I believe is going to happen next, although I will save that for when we get into episode 3. But I feel like that Nick's character and Arlene, they definitely are going to have some type of situation where they are possibly going to be working together because it kind of feels it's heading in that direction. Which we'll get into here shortly. But it was no mistake that those characters were there at the same time, because I thought it was kind of odd. This character shows up, and obviously, as an investigative reporter, Arlene is investigating the situation, what's going on with Franklin, how is his family moving, to try to see what she can actually, expose about him. So there's a reason why they had them at the same place, and I'm pretty sure that will be answered as the season goes on. And as for the final takeaway, to go along to your point of what you said about Leon struggling as well as Franklin, this all goes back to what happened last season, and we have to definitely praise and give a shout out to Damson Idris, because the performance he had in that episode last season, where he told off Leon, when Leon had all these issues with Manboy, he told him off and said, listen, you're going to leave this guy alone, or else I'm going to have to cut you out. At that point, when I saw that performance, I forgot that this guy was from the UK. Because the way he approached the situation, spoke to him, and cussed him out, that was just like a next level thing. So, but yeah, all stemming from that blow up situation. This is why now that this whole relationship is fractured with Leon. And also, we think about going back to season 1 and 2 and how Kevin started to have a falling out with Franklin, because he started to believe, well, it's possible where he can run this business on his own. He didn't need Franklin. And he tried to tell Leon the same thing. So I like how they are revisiting this storyline where Leon is thinking he can be his own man. He doesn't need Franklin. But as we can see, they both need each other. So I'm curious to see how the storyline is going to progress. But so far, they really had to, I think, emphasize that everybody is struggling right now. Franklin is not making the best of decisions as expected. And there has to be some type of falling out behind this. But yeah, it was definitely a bad decision to set up that meet and then not know for sure that Skully was actually killed, because now Skully is going to be gunning for Franklin and everybody that was ever associated with Franklin. So it's not a good situation. Um, and that reminds me, one final point I want to make before we go on to episode 3, because I feel like I definitely have to say this. To go along with everything that I've already mentioned about the falling out between those characters and Skully and so on and so forth, we also have to acknowledge when they had that shootout, Jerome actually shot a kid. He shot somebody that was involved in that situation. And then you see later in the episode, he's still trying to process and understand what he just did. I kind of feel like that's going to impact this character moving forward in the next couple of episodes. Now, I don't want to say that I hope. I think we can all agree that somebody close to Franklin is probably going to get killed this season. If you recall, when Franklin had his discussion and he was trying to figure out how to deal with the situation between Manboy and Skully, if you recall, Jerome said that he trusts Skully. I mean, he trusts Manboy and he wants to continue working with Manboy, whereas Louie said she doesn't trust Manboy. She would rather just keep working with Skully. So I would not be surprised if one of those characters takes out Jerome later on this season, because I kind of feel like somebody important to Franklin is definitely not going to make it out this season. It could even be Elton that ends up getting taken out, because again, his parents are deciding to stay in that house, knowing that now Skully is looking for their son, and maybe they don't know to the full extent of what all is going on, but somebody close to Franklin is definitely going to, I think, get killed this season. It's just a matter of figuring out who it is and how that's going to impact him moving forward. But we'll see. But those are my takeaways for episode 2. Hopefully I didn't say too much, because episode 3 is, I think, we definitely will have a lot more to say about that.
Oh yeah, no, I agree. The way this season is panning out, I think definitely someone has to get killed off, because there's just too many bullets flying back and forth at this point. So it's entirely likely that someone important is going to die, and it should be someone close to Franklin, the way things are playing out. But yeah, so with that being said, let's get straight to episode 3 then, because there's a lot to talk about here. So so first of all, and I'm gonna ask you a question, Rich, because here's the thing, right? So Snowfall started, I guess, like around 3 years ago or something, and because of licenses and stuff like that, like it wasn't available for me to watch in the UK initially. So like, and then at one point it showed up on BBC iPlayer to watch, right? I guess because Franklin is British, so there's that British connection. So BBC were like, oh, we need that show. So yeah, so like I watched the entire season, 1 through 3, in like a week or something like that, right? So and when you binge a show like that, it's like sometimes you don't remember all the details, because like you're seeing it all in one instead of like having it spread out over like 3 years or whatever. So like the scene I'm talking about in episode 3, right, is when at the start, or near the start of the episode, Teddy and Gustavo have like an exchange and everything, and then he ends up knocking out Gustavo, and when he's sitting down in that place and everything, and Teddy's basically telling him his his roots and CIA and everything like that, right? So I thought Gustavo already knew. Like for some reason I thought he already knew this stuff, but is this like the first time that he's finding out about?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Teddy had to tell other people about this.
Right.
But I don't think he's ever really told Gustavo the full story of what's going on with him.
Okay.
But yeah, that's why I was a surprise to him, because he was surprised who these people are, because he was really about to go to war with that officer and his other guys, and he was trying to tell him, no, you can't do this, because we're all connected.
Right. Okay. So yeah, so that was interesting. So now Gustavo knows that, and that got me thinking, like, obviously at the moment, revenge is on his mind, and that's like the only thing he can see at this moment. Like he wants to, get revenge for what happened to his family, right? But
Hmm.
but I'm wondering later on down the road, like what's gonna happen, now that he knows this information, like if he's gonna plan something or maybe try and get away from this guy or something, because if he's with
Well,
this, yeah, go ahead.
oh no, I was gonna say, well, that's a very good question because if you also recall, Franklin also knows
Yeah.
who Teddy really is.
Mm-hmm.
Because the whole reason why he killed Andre last season is because Andre got access to the files that he stole. So I could definitely see if it's a push comes to shove situation, I could definitely see those characters having to try and do something about Teddy if they need to. But as we know, Teddy is pretty dangerous as well from this
Yeah.
episode.
Yeah. Yeah. He can get violent if he needs to. So so yeah. But yeah, that was interesting. So but yeah. And also, in this episode, we see Arlene. She's kind of meeting with some new investigator guy. And it seems like they're gonna be trying to uncover everything about Franklin, and obviously this guy is warning her at the same time and telling her like people disappear when they start looking into this guy and stuff like that. So she's again getting that lecture about Franklin being dangerous, and maybe she should back off a little and things like that. But obviously we know she's not going to stop. She's nosy. She wants to find out what's going on. So but yeah. And so then there's I think there was an exchange between Manboy and Jerome, and like Manboy he's basically started saying stuff like he blames Franklin for what's happened in this gang war, and he's starting to feel like he doesn't need help from Franklin and stuff like that. So once he starts talking like that, it's like the next thing he could possibly say is let's get Franklin out the way, we don't need him, kind of thing. So I feel like this is the start of Manboy kind of rebelling a little bit and maybe turning against Franklin and the team. So it's going to be interesting to see how that develops moving forward. And then they've been kind of teasing this Paul Davis character, which I believe this guy is Tate's pops or something from Power or something like that, because he has all the political connections and stuff. So, but yeah,
this guy has been in a lot of movies, a lot of TV shows, and the characters he plays. He was in The Shy also. He was in Cooley High. So he's been in a lot of movies for a long time, but always the characters he played questionable characters.
Yeah, and because I heard that too. I heard a lot of people saying he's been in other shows and stuff, and based on the kind of characters he plays, they feel like they don't trust him in this show.
Yep.
So
that's 100% correct.
Yeah, he has that kind of face as well that you just don't trust. Like that when he smiles, it's like that's like a real slick kind of smile. Like it's not genuine. So yeah. But he finally shows up. And we see, he meets with Sissy and everything, and he pops up again later in the show, which I'm going to touch on that in a little bit. But yeah, so seeing a new character is always exciting because you're wondering what kind of role they're going to play in the long term and everything. So that's cool. And then there's a pretty crazy scene, a pretty crazy chain of events where Officer Nix kind of loses it, and he ends up he acts like he's arresting Sissy or something like that, and then he ends up taking her to the grave of what's his name, Andre, right?
Yep.
So yeah, he shows her the grave and basically tells her what Franklin did and everything. And he tries to scare her a little bit and everything like that, and then she ends up coming back home later on. So he's obviously trying to send a message to Franklin with that. But when Sissy gets back home, and she's like, and they ask her what happened, what did he say, and everything like that, and she's like, they didn't say anything I don't already know. And she's basically trying to like tell Franklin like he's got to deal with this and everything. And it kind of shows how much Sissy has changed as a character now, because it's not like she's not a concerned mother anymore. It's like now she's playing an active role in things, and her character has kind of like taken this dark turn. And I wonder how much they're going to push that, how much like they're going to play on the fact that she's kind of changed, and she's kind of become a darker person as a result of what Franklin has been doing and stuff. And I wonder if this might lead to either maybe her demise, or or maybe will she have a change of heart later and figure out that maybe this isn't what they should be doing. So I want to know, I'm wondering where that's going to lead to. But go ahead, what was you going to say?
I definitely want to comment on that real briefly. The thing now, this is what I want people to understand about the show, is that the reason why it's a great show is that obviously the characters, they are very flawed, they do very dangerous, bad things, but from the standpoint of Franklin, the whole thing that they're trying to say is that this is a guy who was trying to go out and get opportunities for himself, was unsuccessful, and when you think about the dynamic with his mom, and the fact that she had that job in the very beginning of the show, underpaid, overworked, etc., and then it really kind of takes a turn on how I guess we as Black people sometimes feel within society, which is that you have to work twice as hard to get to a certain level. And what this is basically doing is why you root for characters like Franklin is because yes, he does horrible things, but you definitely want to see the character and his family be successful in some capacity. But the decisions they go about to get there are always questionable, and really it's dangerous and detrimental to everyone around them. So to go to what you're saying about the mom and eventually have her demise, I personally feel if they kill the mom off, that definitely 100% changes Franklin like into a completely different person entirely. So would they do that? I could see them doing that, but because they emphasize her as being such an important part of him, I just would be curious to see what the fallout would be from that, because the actress is really good, but it's clear that it's always been about Mama. Anything Franklin has done, it has been trying to better things with his mom, and his mom has been there consistently since he was a kid. We didn't see Elton show up until later on in Franklin's life. So it's a dynamic that I think that they will play around. But I know if they did kill his mom, that would definitely 100%. It would change the whole dynamic of how Franklin operates right now, I think. And it would also put his relationship with his father. I think at that point, that relationship would be completely just ripped apart, because we know how much Alton loves Sissy. So that would 100% create issues. And then to go along with what I said earlier about if Jerome is killed, well, I would imagine that could be the type of thing that would really make Sissy want to turn on her son, because of the fact that he got her brother killed. Because what was important about the scene in this episode is that when Sissy got picked up by Nyx and was brought to the grave site, and then she contacted Franklin and they got to her, that was the point where she finally had a moment of reconciliation between her and Jerome, because Jerome was there to hold her and embrace her. So I kind of feel like if one of those characters does get killed off this season, it's going to definitely have a negative impact on Franklin, but also the people around Franklin, because they really can't be. They're not going to be fully still with him after this. It's going to cause some type of fracture within the actual family.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens. But I understand the standpoint of somebody, because they've struggled all their life. Once they have a chance to have some type of success, they want to keep it and maintain it. But that's what makes it a challenge to watch a show and try to say that you want to root against these characters, because you understand their struggle, what they're dealing with, and that they would not be successful. But at the same time, what they're doing is not really good for the community, especially. Maybe it's good for them. These are the same type of questions you had when you think about shows like Breaking Bad and even Power to an extent, because Ghost and Walter White were not doing positive things. They did stuff for themselves, you know, but it's perceived as, it's detrimental to a lot of people around them. And that's just how it is. But we'll see how the storyline comes full circle. But yeah, I kind of feel like what you said, somebody close to Franklin is going to die this season. It's just a matter of who is it going to be. And if it is his mom or Jerome, that is going to cause a significant issue within the family, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, great points. I don't think if the mother is going to die, I don't think it's going to be this season. I think, like you said earlier, it's more likely to be Jerome, I think, and then that will have a ripple effect because, the mom won't be too happy about that, and that might cause more friction between, Franklin and his parents and stuff. So, I think that's the more likely death. But I wouldn't be surprised if she, dies in another season later on or something.
Yeah,
But
that's possible.
yeah, but yeah, she, I think ultimately she doesn't want to lose Franklin because, she's been through this already, like, because she was D'Angelo's mother as well, so she doesn't want to lose another son, so that's a Wire reference for you people out there, but
Yeah.
but yeah, but no, it's a very, like, I really like Sissy as a character, and I like how complicated she's become. Like, there's a lot of gray areas there because she's still a mother. She still has that motherly touch to her, but now she's obviously much darker now, and playing a more active role in what Franklin is doing. So I kind of like that. I like complicated characters like that. So yeah, so let's see how they handle that throughout the season. But another thing that happens is in this episode is we see that Franklin, buys the bookstore, the bookshop or whatever, and he kind of he ensures the owners, the current owners, that he's going to look after them. Everything's going to be fine. Everything's going to function as normal, I guess. But then later on, we see Franklin kind of switch because obviously this is a play. Like, he's making a move for his new arrangement with I believe with what's his name? I just said it, Paul Davis, right? So
yeah.
Obviously he's making moves based on that. So we see later on when he visits the owners again, and he tells them, yeah, you guys got to be out of here by tomorrow or whatever. Like, and just that cold look, that cold emotionless look that he gives them, it's like, wow, he doesn't feel anything about this. Like, he's just kicking these two black owners out of their shop like this, like, and it just shows you like how far he's come. Like, and like you were, I believe you were saying earlier, they're doing these characters are doing bad things, but at the same time, it's a representation of how far they've come financially. Like, they've come from nothing to something. And there is a parallel here with corporate America, because it's like people in corporate America do bad things like this all the time. They buy places just to kick people out, and they do all sorts of dirty things like this, but you never see it and you never judge them for it. But because it's a kid coming from the streets and everything, it has that colder touch to it, like, and people see it as more of a heartless thing. Obviously, it's not good to sell drugs,
Mm-hmm.
but you know, it just shows you that kind of parallel to that you know Franklin has advanced to a new level to where you know he's making these kind of moves and he's you know he's playing dirty but in a more legal way sort of thing. So
Yeah.
yeah, I kind of like that. I like seeing stuff like that. So then, also in this episode, you know, we have like a whole action sequence where Teddy is kind of doing like his CIA, you know, super cop thing, you know, doing his Call of Duty thing. So so Gustavo and you know Teddy, they're kind of getting some payback on that Mexican you know border officer and everything. But you know, my question is like, what's next for Gustavo after this? Like, I really want to see where they go from here. You know, in the next episode, because yeah, now there's a whole new dynamic here now that Gustavo obviously knows, you know
Mm-hmm.
what Teddy is all about. So yeah, and then so thanks to the deal that you know the deals that Franklin and Sissy has made with Paul Davis, and now that they have him, he actually makes Officer Nix get transferred, and you know the police chief or wherever he actually threatens to have you know Nix fired if you know if he protests about it or if he makes a fuss or something. So already we're kind of seeing the power that this Paul Davis character has, and
Mm-hmm.
you know this makes me wonder how much is he going to be able to do for Franklin in the future, and what is it going to cost? And also, surely this Paul Davis guy has you know has his own wants and needs as well. So
Mm-hmm.
you know I'm just wondering you know what is he going to pull? Like what is he like? Clearly he's going to pull something. He's going to you know he's gonna I think he's gonna double cross Franklin in some kind of way, because he obviously has his own motives. So yeah, so I want to see how that is gonna go. But there is many ways they could use this character now, because you know this could be a way where Franklin, you know, if he ever needs to, he can try and you know implicate what's his name, Teddy, you know. So
Mm-hmm.
so he's got this guy in his back pocket, and this could help him because obviously at the moment, Teddy has all the power because he's the CIA agent. If he wanted to, he could get you know Franklin set up to go to jail tomorrow if he wanted to, you know. So, but now Franklin kind of has this guy. He has some political pull now. So I want to
Mm-hmm.
see you know how that is gonna go in the future. But yeah, those are my takeaways. So I'm very interested to hear yours. So go ahead, Rich. What are your takeaways from episode 3?
Once again, excellent takeaways rather. It had a lot to say. I agree with a lot of those points. A few things that I will add is the beginning of this episode. We had the exchange between Nix and Franklin. Excellent acting because they actually had a highlight of this also on their channel. But yeah, Franklin basically telling him, if you think you have something on me, maybe you did, but then you decide to take the money. So this is him trying to put Nix in his place after Nix threatened Elton in the previous episode, which I think was good for him to do that. Um, but I also feel like this is a character that you need to be very careful with, and I don't know. Obviously, Franklin does not want to outright kill Nix, but something that he's going to have to deal with this character because this character knows a lot. This is the character that spoke to Andre Wright last season when Andre Wright revealed everything that he found in that file. So he knows how deep this thing goes, which makes me question why would you leave this guy alive um, after all of this? He is definitely a threat. And to go what I said earlier about how he showed up and threatened Alton and Arlene was there. Now I believe because of what happened with his job, I can see him reaching out to Arlene. Maybe they have some type of exchange and he reveals, so you want something on Franklin Saint? Well, I know that he killed Andre Wright. Point blank, that's it. And that would be why he's detrimental to Franklin still. I am curious, like you said, to see how they're going to interact moving forward as far as business is concerned. But yeah, this guy is not going away anytime soon. So it's just a matter of what is the tactic that he's going to try, because he has a beef with Franklin, obviously. So now, if he is no longer operating in that particular precinct, he can go out of his own jurisdiction and act in different ways that are clearly against what the police would enforce. So I'm curious to see how he's going to interact with Franklin after this, for sure. The other takeaway of the whole business deal with the old people, I know a lot of people probably felt a certain type of way about that, but it is business, obviously. We already know if someone offers you a ton of money to do a deal, I mean, it's pretty obvious that you have to know everything is not going to be the same. Once you take that money, there's going to be some changes to that deal that are probably going to happen. That's pretty obvious. Yeah. So for them to think that they were going to continue to keep the business operating as is, they should know better than that. When you see what he was offering, there has to be a catch to this. So it's unfortunate. I know that they said we've been in business for 30 years. This has been in our family, and now it's over. But this stuff happens every single day, as you said, in America. So I'm glad they put that in here. And also the fact that what also makes it a twist, again, if you recall in previous seasons, Franklin was getting educated going to that bookshop, trying to read up on history and what happened with the Black Panthers and the stuff with his father. So that's what makes it such an ironic twist, that now he also now sees this as a business opportunity that could benefit him further. So it comes down to the mentality: it's either them or me. I'm going to choose me, and I'm going to continue to make sure that my family is taken care of. So this is something that I'm going to take that's going to better our case. I'm going to do it, and I'm not going to think about any relationship, I'm not going to think about any feelings of hurting anybody. So we'll see what happens next with that whole process. As for any other takeaways, yes, I thoroughly enjoyed Teddy's Call of Duty shootout session. Obviously, him and Gustavo are a little rusty because they did get shot. You know, they had on the bulletproof vest, but they still took some shots. So, but yes, he got revenge. But what I think is important about this dynamic is that, if you recall in this episode, Gustavo basically, Teddy told Gustavo, "Listen, we have a plan as to how to go about handling this situation," and Gustavo still decided to take matters into his own hands. So what this should show Teddy moving forward is that when it comes to things that Gustavo holds dearly, he absolutely is a loose cannon. He can do whatever he wants to do, and you can't really control somebody like that. So if I was Teddy, I certainly would not try to control this guy. Know that he has a temper, and that he will take action if he needs to take action under any circumstances. So it definitely is going to put that relationship, I feel, through a series of tests now, because I feel like if Gustavo is in any situation where he feels like he's being disrespected or threatened, I can see him going off on somebody, and that would be detrimental to Teddy as well now. So it's an interesting dynamic to make you wonder how these two characters going to coexist now that he knows who Teddy really is. So it's a lot of questions that it leaves up in the air. And if there's one other point that I will make, another takeaway from this episode, obviously we did not see Skully again. I assume that will change in the next episode, because obviously, he got shot. He took a couple of shots in the previous episode, and he was very angry after he took them shots. But I want to see how they progress that along, because I would think the thing is this, when I saw this episode, I didn't really think as though Franklin was at any point still worried or concerned about what's happening with Skully and Manboy. And I kind of feel like he needs to be concerned about that all the time now, because at any point Skully could roll up and just start shooting up his house. But he doesn't feel to be really that concerned right now. So we'll see if that changes the next episode. Um, but yeah, we'll see what happens. But final takeaway, I would say from the episode, we did see that they had a scene with Leon's ex, Wanda,
Oh yeah.
and her seeing
Wanda.
the starting to see the effects of using the crack cocaine. Um, she did allude to the fact that the crack cocaine that Leon has now is not as strong and pure as the brand that he was getting from Franklin. But she just started to see the effects of it when she pulled, bleeding from her mouth and pulled out a tooth. So I know there are some people that may believe that the character is going to go through a transformation now and try to get back to how she was before she got hooked on this stuff. I don't think I see that happening because I feel like what they did with Melody and how they were able to quickly turn that character around. Now it appears that she's on the straight and narrow. I don't think they were going to take the exact same path with Wanda because, I don't know. And then the other thing is with Melody is that Melody obviously is not on this stuff anymore, but I kind of feel like if push comes to shove, if she is at any point gets back in that area, back in that neighborhood around any of those people or Franklin, she can get hooked again. So I don't really know what's going to happen with that dynamic. But as far as Wanda is concerned, they want to remind you that she still cares about Leon. And, Leon obviously still cares to an extent. But the character, she's far gone now. But I was curious as to why they added that scene to see if they are going to try and tell a redemption story for her. I have no idea, but maybe it was only there to just show, once again, the impacts of crack cocaine, how it deteriorates one's mind, body, soul, etc. And again, to just hit the point home that, yes, you should never, ever do drugs at all.
Yeah.
But we'll see. Those are my main takeaways from this episode.
Yeah, moments like that with Melody, I think, are definitely important in these kind of shows because it's like, we get to see one side of things where it's like, the inspirational drug dealer who, came from nothing to something or whatever. But we, it's important that you also see what it costs, and the cost of that is that you pollute your environment, and people get hooked on this stuff, and it it breaks up families and everything like that. So yeah, it's important to show that at some point in time.
I agree. I just want to say, because you mentioned that, it reminds me of the episode where Melody was hooked and she spent the time with Wanda. She was missing. That was just, that was a very disturbing, but it was so well done how they showed how things were changing. They're skating around the ring and then you see spaced out and stuff like that. It's very sad to see that, but the way they portrayed it would make me believe this is how it really is to somebody that's high. And then the whole thing about when Franklin walks into the crack house to pick her up, that also is so dark, disturbing to see. But again, I really feel like you have to tell the story this way because you have to show this is what these things cost people. So I appreciate it. But yes, that was a very dark thing to see. Yeah. But it was very well done. So they have to get real about this stuff. So I appreciate that they're keeping it real.
Indeed. So yeah, that was a really good episode. I think it definitely left a lot of questions for what's to come next. So let's before we head out, let's spend a few minutes just talking about what we think is going to happen in episode 4. And just you can give predictions about things that you might happen in the rest of the season also. So and also feel free to bring up anything that we kind of talked about in our takeaways for episode 3 as well, if relevant. So the first thing I just wanted to highlight quickly is that in episode 3, of course, we saw that exchange with Manboy and Jerome. And did we see Skully in this episode? I can't remember.
No, he wasn't. He wasn't in the episode at all.
Okay, yeah. So we didn't see Skully at all. So I feel like in the next episode we're definitely gonna that's gonna escalate. We're gonna see more of that since it kind of played a background role in this one. So yeah, so it's like what is the next move in the Skully versus Manboy war? Do you think?
That's a great question. Well, there is one trailer for the promo for next week, which shows some people getting shot at, like in broad daylight, in two cars right next to each other. So my guess is that Skully and his people are going to try and take out some of Manboy's people because they have an opportunity. But I also feel like eventually Leon is out here by himself. Leon is absolutely in trouble. I don't know. Obviously, we know he has beef with Manboy from what happened last season. I would assume that Skully knows because he is Franklin's friend that's another way that I can get to Franklin. So I kind of feel like both of those sides they can definitely go after Leon as well. So let's not rule that out 100%. But what happens next? I just think Skully for sure they're going to have some type of retaliation for that attack in episode 2.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, like you said, in that trailer, we see that the car pulls up and everything. So something's definitely going down. So yeah. I mean, I'm not gonna predict anything because I don't know how it's gonna play out, but yeah, I know that this particular storyline is definitely escalating. And I just can't wait to see, and I do think Leon will get involved in some way. But I also wanted to ask you, like, do you think there could be like any point where Leon maybe makes a truce between one of the gangs, and like
that might be possible. One thing that I kind of was thinking might happen, although it kind of seems like it won't happen now. I thought that once Manboy and Skully find out what Franklin's plan was to basically approach both of them, that would make them be like, well, hold on a second, we need to go after Franklin. Because one thing that was highlighted in the first episode this season, when Franklin approached both of them individually, they did not trust him. And they made that very clear. They made that very clear that they don't trust him. So I kind of feel like if they were to have a conversation, now maybe this won't happen because, again, they've already killed people on both sides. But if they were to have a conversation and they find out Franklin told you this, then they can be the ones to go after Franklin. So I'm not 100% sure. But could Leon align with one of them? Yeah, I think he absolutely could. But I think at the end of the day, if Leon wants to get access to the product, he has better chances, I guess, of lining with Manboy, since Manboy is the one that has aspirations of taking over. So yeah, it certainly could happen, I think. But I think it's more likely that, yeah, Manboy and Leon, if they were to ever work together again, but Leon is someone who has a lot of pride. I don't see him coming back to Manboy, but again, I don't really know. It depends on what happens from here on out.
Oh yeah, for sure. So any other predictions that you think are coming in this next episode?
I'm curious to see how they are going to expand and to which areas, because the episode is titled Expansion. We see that Jerome is against this idea. One thing that I do want to make a prediction on, and really it's kind of a touchy thing to really gauge whether or not it's headed in this direction. We know that when Franklin spent some time away recovering, the whole time Jerome and Louis were keeping everything in line. And this is a reason why they obviously work with Manboy a lot. This is the reason why Jerome feels comfortable still working with Manboy and does not mind cutting out Skully. My thing is, I'm curious if they would make this go in a direction whereas if they see that Jerome if they see that Manboy is someone that they feel that obviously Jerome trusts Manboy, would they make this a situation where Jerome would be the one to go against Franklin and align himself with Manboy? That is a question that I'm curious to find out, because it feels like they were very buddy-buddy in this episode, Jerome and Manboy, when they had the little exchange. And it kind of feels like there's more to that relationship, like they're cool with each other now.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, Louis is the one that is suspicious of Manboy. So it's an interesting dynamic because Louis doesn't trust Manboy, but yet Jerome does. So you're seeing that. If I had to make a prediction, I would say that what's going on with this war, it's definitely also going to potentially split the family in terms of who they think is someone that they would want to work with long term. But I still feel like, as far as Skully in Manboy is concerned, I personally think by the end of this season, one of those characters has to get killed off. To fully
Yeah.
close off the storyline of this whole war thing, unless they're going to prolong it until next season. But I kind of feel like for a finale or the episode before, one of those characters probably is going to go down, and I would make a guess that it might be Skully. But
Yeah.
again, I don't know what their long-term plans are for Manboy, but we'll have to see.
Oh yeah, I definitely think the gang war has to kind of wrap up in the season because for Franklin to be able to grow beyond the
Hmm.
point he's at, it like he has to resolve this, like, because this could easily spill out into other things that he's doing. The
Yeah.
longer it goes on, like he's vulnerable. So all these other moves he's making, like it can affect those things. So I definitely feel like this kind of has to wrap up. It's in Franklin's best interest, and also if it drags on too long, then it might become played out as a storyline. So yeah,
Hmm.
I see it wrapping up within this season for sure. But I don't know what state Franklin and the business will be in at that point at the end of the season. So, because so many different things are at play, including the investigation that's going on and everything with Arlene. So
Yeah.
yeah, a lot could happen, but yeah, this gang war has to resolve at some point. But yeah, that's pretty much like I don't really have a lot of predictions. So is there anything else you wanted to get to, or anything in that preview for episode 4 that stood out to you that you want to kind of touch on as well?
Oh no, I just think pretty much, yeah. It's just a matter of seeing what happens next.
Mm.
Hard to really gauge when I guess the preview is only like 39 seconds
Yeah, it
to
was real
say.
brief.
But all I know is I'm looking forward to the next episode. It looks as though somebody was coming after Leon also, so we'll see what that's all about. But I'm looking forward to the next episode. I want to see how the characters evolve, how the storyline evolves. So it's a lot to look forward to for sure.
Okay, so yeah, we're gonna cap this right there. That was our first episode of Snowfall Aftermath. Obviously, next week, we will be recapping just episode 4 of season 4. So it will be a lot. It will be a much shorter show, but at least we can expand more on that particular episode.
Hmm.
So that's the good thing. But definitely, if you enjoyed this discussion today, definitely leave your comments, whether it's on YouTube, on the website, thecoalition.com, or any other place you might see the content. We're not on iTunes or anything yet because we're just launching this show, but eventually, if we get the numbers, if we get a good response for this, we will branch out to other platforms. So if you see this and you enjoy it, definitely let us know, because that's what keeps us going. And also, if you have any theories or predictions for the show, we want to hear that too. So definitely leave a response. And we thank you guys for supporting us in all our other shows. Definitely check out some of the other podcasts we have. We have a Walking Dead recap show. We have a WandaVision recap show. Once Power comes back, we will of course be recapping that again in the Powercast. So yeah, check out some of the other things we're doing. But for now, we will see you next week. Stay healthy, everyone, and enjoy yourself.
Peace.
Peace.